Hello, this is David Plazas, the Opinion and Engagement Director for the USA Today Network Tennessee and the Tennessean. This is the second annual Real Estate Outlook for Middle Tennessee. We first did this last year to look at the trends in 2024, and we're doing this again in 2025. We want to thank the Greater Nashville REALTORS for partnering with us on this particular program. And today we have a special treat with you. We have three experts who will be moderated in a conversation by my colleague Molly Davis of the business team of the Tennessean. Our guests are Colin Wainwright, who's a broker and sales manager at Parks Compass, Pilkerton, and president of the Greater Nashville REALTORS, Jacob Coupin, who is a realtor at the Coupin Group and the District 19 Nashville-Davidson County Metro Council member, and Elizabeth Gatlin is broker, owner, and architect at Southern Athena and a board member at Greater Nashville REALTORS. With that in mind, Molly, I want to turn it over to you. How are you doing tonight?
I'm great. Thank you so much, David. I'm Molly Davis. I am a business and real estate reporter for the Tennessean here in Nashville. I'm going to be starting us off tonight with just kind of tossing it to our panelists. Can you tell us a little bit about the role that each of you play in Nashville's residential real estate ecosystem? Colin, I'd like to start with you if possible.
Sure. As president of Greater Nashville REALTORS, I am over an organization of nearly 7,000 realtors in the Greater Nashville area. And so we advocate for all sorts of different things, not only legislative, but code of ethics. We have professional development. We offer a lot of resources for realtors to help them do their jobs better. And we help educate the consumers on housing resources that are available to them. And as realtors, obviously, in our day-to-day business, we like to help people facilitate transactions and, in the end, really facilitate dreams so that people can build generational wealth through real estate.
Thanks for that. Liz, I'll toss it to you next.
Awesome. So I am also part of the Greater Nashville REALTORS. I'm one of their new board members. I started in real estate over a decade ago in the commercial industry and quickly got into real estate development. And as my, career has progressed, I've done a lot of multifamily and mixed use development. So I've really got a great pulse on what's going on in the development world, how Nashville is growing. And then also I'm a Nashville native, so I'm just always loving to see all of the cool new things that are going on in our city. It's an amazing place to be and live, and I'm excited about all of the growth that we're experiencing.
Thanks. And Jacob, if you care to introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Really excited to be here. I wear a couple different hats. Been a realtor for almost 8 years now. Recently got my mortgage license, so I'm a lender as well. And then the District 19 council person. So I've got the downtown district, so it's the whole interstate loop, bumps out into Midtown, and then of course over to the East Bank. And yeah, just excited to talk about the, kind of what affordability looks like and what housing looks like. I think it's gonna be an important year, and it kind of crosses a lot of different lanes of my life.
Thanks so much. Jacob, I'll stay with you for a second. I'd like to start by asking, just more generally, how would you characterize the current moment of Nashville's real estate market at the beginning of 2025? And if there's any trends or data points that you'd like to highlight to get the discussion started, please share.
Yeah, thanks so much. So I think we're really at a crossroads right now. As we know, through the COVID market, affordability kind of dropped precipitously, where folks are really struggling. They're maxing out their monthly payments to try to get into housing. And you've got folks that own their homes that have really great interest rates that aren't willing to give those up, understandably. And we are in a state where we don't have inclusionary zoning. We don't have certain tools that would create affordability. So it's a really important issue. I think there's a lot of momentum behind that, though. I think that the state of Tennessee is certainly starting to take notice and look at ways that it can give us some tools to create affordability. I know the city of Nashville is certainly very deep into that. And I imagine we'll talk more about that in the coming moments. But I think that this year, really, we're going to have a reckoning of what does the 6 to 7% interest rate world look like as it pertains to home ownership in this city and in this area.
Great. Thanks so much. Liz, anything to add to that? Anything for you to highlight?
Absolutely. So I think that there's a lot of opportunity for public-private partnership as Nashville grows to offset some of that affordability. Obviously, markets always shift, and so we are in a shifting market, but our Nashville market has been strong. We are still growing, and we will continue to see growth challenges and opportunities no matter what the interest rate is, because after all, people are still moving here. Even with these high interest rates, people are still saying Nashville and Greater Nashville area is the place I want to be. And to Jacob's point, we do have a great economy locally and in our Tennessee area. So
I want to actually hone in a little bit. You both mentioned mortgage rates, so I'm going to dive right in and then toss this next question over to Colin, if that's okay. Mortgage rates obviously are a pain point, a continuous pain point over these last couple of months, and will continue to be. I actually read a recent report comparing the uncertainty of the situation to a magic 8-ball that's telling you to ask again later. So, I mean, just amid that stubbornness and sort of that uncertainty, how are you making sense of the situation? And then how are you kind of translating that over to clients in Nashville as a leader? Colin, if you could start.
Sure. It's always a math problem. And at the end of the day, the D's of real estate still exist. You have death, divorce, diapers, diamonds, downsizing, debt, disaster. Life does go on, and you can only hold for so long. And we are seeing pent-up demand. And some people are starting to come around, mostly buyers and sellers. Both have had a mind shift. The overheated years, and then 2023 and 2024 have been sluggish by comparison, but we're still seeing positive appreciation. So my conversation that I'm having with buyers is that you need to do the math problem of offsetting the appreciation that we're seeing every year. The house that you didn't buy last year because you were waiting for the interest rates to drop is now potentially 5% more expensive than it was last year. Now, granted, if you didn't have enough to put down on that in the first place, that's a different conversation. But people that are holding out for the best deal, I don't see these rates dropping significantly anytime soon. And so you just have to ask yourself, do I want to get a foothold in the market? Your first home is never your forever home, but you can't build the wealth if you're renting forever. So if you want to get in, sometimes waiting isn't always the best solution financially, because waiting can cost as well.
Yeah, thank you for that. Liz, I want to toss it to you and hear your perspective, especially considering you are a little bit multifaceted in your experience with commercial, residential, and different types of real estate here.
So I agree with Colin. Like, if you're waiting, it's going to be too late. One of the things about Nashville's growth is, we used to have 100+ people moving here a day. Right now, we've got, as far as people relocating to Nashville, it's in the 60 to 70 range people per day. And that's not deaths and babies, that's people relocating to Nashville. And so it's really a supply and demand equation. We do not, as an area, have enough supply to house all of the people and all of the demand, which increases prices, and there's just pent up demand. So if people are waiting on the sidelines, they could get stuck, which is a tricky problem. There's a ton of apartments coming online. I mean, you've got just apartments everywhere. I think I've pulled some stats. We've got 100,000 apartments in multifamily this last year. But it's like, what do you do with the people that actually want to buy? And so I'd say a lot of that comes down to policy and making it easy for developers to build, but the cost of construction is high. So what do you do to balance all of that out? Because at the end of the day, everybody has to win for it to be a win-win in our market.
Right. Yeah, thank you for that answer. I want to just as a follow-up ask you, with all of that in mind, and those who, given the challenges, still feel locked out of buying, they are renting for longer. What are some things that renters and Nashvilleians in general should know about the rental market as we head into 2025? Liz?
Yes, so the rental market is pretty good. It's competitive for renters now. We saw rent decreases. So going into 2025, you've got a lot of apartment complexes coming online, and we're going to see that continue. And they want to get them rented. And so you do have a little more room to find a great place to have a stopgap. But I would say if you can make the numbers work to buy, you're always going to be ahead of the game in the wealth area. And just, it also, you're investing in your community. People that buy tend to stay longer and invest in their local businesses and their local markets for long periods of time because they have a stake in it as owners. Versus more transient types that are going in and out of apartments or just here for a year or so.
Thanks. And speaking of we've brought up policy a couple times. I want to kind of change gears here a little bit in regards to affordability. Jacob, if you could kind of speak on some of the things that you're looking forward to in the coming year where it comes to local, state, and or federal policy that could come down and sort of spur the development and creation of more accessible housing options for those who need them. And sort of define for me, what does progress on that front really look like in 2025? Oh, you are muted.
Well, I gave away the secret, but it was muted, so I don't know. No, really good question. And we're really lucky to have a mayor and a city council I think really cares deeply about the affordability challenges in the city. It's something that I've been excited to start working on. And what does progress look like to me? Progress, is measurable improvement, right? It's not going to happen overnight, but it's going to take kind of work and effort, but to see that moving forward. And to that end, we have a new affordable housing office in the city, and they've put together an affordable housing dashboard. So you can actually go online and see units that are coming in and units that are available and how many units we need to hit certain goals. I think that's a really good tool to kind of see where we are. Also really proud and excited to see the East Bank development continue. That's in my district. That's something that the mayor's office did an incredible job, in my opinion, pulling a deal together that was really, really good for Nashville, but also brought in a really strong partner in the Fallon Group. And part of that project, the first phase, is going to be, about 700 affordable units. So half that initial phase is going to be 30, 60, and 80% AMI units. So again, finding ways to kind of chip away at this deficit and provide housing for folks. Many people out there, I'm sure, have heard about the Nest suite of bills that kind of came early in our term and reached some bumps and bruises. There's a lot of commentary supportive of it, a lot of commentary against it. And that all led to the planning department and Department of Transportation to start working on, they've been working on, but kind of to continue these efforts to study what are our housing needs, where can density go, where should density go, what do we need to do infrastructure wise to support that, things like that. So we expect in the next couple months to hear back on what those findings are, and then to start to continue to look into where we can kind of increase density, increase options, right? I think that's a key thing, is for folks to have an opportunity to pick a house size and a house price that fits within their budget. And so excited for that on the local level. Then I think statewide, again, one of our biggest challenges is that if somebody comes to me and wants to rezone a piece of property, I can't require 10% of that property to have some affordability metric. And I've talked to a lot of developers who've said, if everybody was playing by that same rule, we'd all be supportive of it, right? But right now from the state level, we're not allowed to do that, but I do think we're seeing conversations in motion around maybe changing that at some point as well. So lots of conversations happening, and I do think we're seeing some progress.
Thanks for that. Colin, if you could add kind of from your perspective, how would you define progress on the front of perhaps policy changes that could spur some more accessible housing options in sort of the greater Nashville area as well, not only just in Davidson County?
There are a lot of really great programs currently available to help buyers for affordable housing options. Like Jacob said, him referencing those and where you can find them. And we also have some as well at our website, greaternashvillerealtors.org/pages/housing resources. We have 10 different options of different programs from THDA to USDA, VA, Dream Streets, lots of different organizations that are there to help buyers. And keeping these programs and policies going from federal all the way to local levels, and keeping the ability to offer these programs to people. A lot of people don't know. Buyers may not know that there are programs where you can put 0% down and get a foothold into home ownership. There's still a common misperception out there that you have to have 20% down, and it's just not always the case. There are a lot of affordable options for people to get into homes that want to be.
Thanks. I want to switch gears just for a second because I would be remiss if I didn't mention 2024 was also a really big year in the greater Nashville area on the luxury side and on that high earner side of things. I mean, we saw, I believe, the record across the state for the priciest home broken 2 times in 1 year. And then also just, that bar continuously being raised on the luxury side and sort of redefining luxury in Middle Tennessee. That's something obviously impacting the region as well. And so we have high earners moving here from out of state. We have strong local wage growth and employment stats that we see are performing well compared to a lot of the rest of the nation. So I just want to ask, how do you sort of anticipate these factors to continue to impact regional growth as we know it? And I'd like to go back to Colin, if you could answer that first.
Sure. The luxury market has not struggled nearly as much as the rest of the market. As you mentioned, we broke the record twice. A $5 to $9 million home used to be a rarity even 5 years ago. There would be few and far between, and now they've become commonplace, and many new construction builds, especially in more rural areas like Williamson County, are becoming very commonplace. So the luxury market has not hurt at all, but we still have a minimum wage of $7.25. So you have to square that dichotomy and find these solutions for people. While the luxury market is obviously going to be more attractive and lucrative to certain builders, we count on people like Jacob to find ways to incentivize builders to create more affordable options, and not just in apartments, homes that can be bought and have equity able to be built for these buyers that are workforce players in the industry. Workforce housing will always be a challenge for us, but I do believe that there are still options. The number one zip code for closings at the end of 2024 was in the top 5 of our most affordable zip codes, Antioch. So I think that proves that buyers are figuring it out. They're getting savvy, and they're using their wits. Whenever there's a problem, people will find a way. And so a lot of zip codes that have not previously been popular are now becoming popular, both for development and infill, and for resale as well. So we're seeing some zip codes get a lot of traction that didn't before, simply because they have a price point in the 300 to 400 range, which is very important for our workforce housing.
Liz, anything to add to that conversation?
I think that there's a lot of kind of negativity with people thinking of density or not in my backyard type of conversations, that sometimes development gets a bad rap because maybe they are not considering the local community and having a hard time managing that. However, the only way to get more workforce housing is to increase density. And so we've got, I mean, Nashville Next, we do have a growth plan. I would say from a policy standpoint, making it easier for developers to actually hit the density numbers that are required in positive ways without being prohibitive. There's been so many times where I've been proposing a density option that's high quality design workforce housing, and it's been just hoops and hoops and hoops because the community says, whoa, we don't want 100 homes next to us. We want it, like down the road, but we still want Starbucks. And so it's kind of this, I guess, public private education opportunity that we have to say, you know what, density can be really beautiful. If you look at bigger cities, growth opportunities, it actually can preserve the landscape if it's done right with quality growth instead of sprawling growth. And so hopefully Nashville can get a rein on that and really go towards more quality growth opportunities than the sprawl that we've experienced over the last decade.
One place that doesn't have to fight as hard to increase density is downtown. Jacob, your district there's urban infill happening all the time in your neck of the woods, especially as we turn towards the East Bank and continue to plan for development there. But at the same time as the density, there's a lot of luxury developments happening in that downtown in your district. Just because of the cost of land. And so anything to add from your perspective when we sort of calculate all of these opposing factors and continue to sort of appeal to all the different pieces of the puzzle?
Yeah, and I think some great points were raised. I think that density can be good if done intentionally. I think that, I know there was a lot of noise around Nest and how it was rolled out and all that, but if underneath the surface, I think there was actually a really good kernel, which was this kind of residential scale multifamily. And I'm not saying that was the right or wrong way to do it, but the intention of it, I think, was the right thought process, which is how do we add density in a way that doesn't look like it doesn't fit the neighborhood, right? How do we add density in a way that fits and looks like it's part of what's already there, but maybe allows more people to live in a certain place? So I think that's an important way to get creative about it. I know that we just recently passed a bill that was led by Councilmember Rollin Horton to allow adaptive residential reuse in commercial zones, right? So you mentioned, people want a Starbucks in their neighborhood. That's a way to take commercial zoning and actually allow it to be residential. So I think it's getting creative in those ways. I'm really curious to see, I've been kind of following the Rent Page lawsuit and what's going on with that. I think that there's an interesting, from the rental side of things, how rates are set and where rates come in and what the rental markets look like. As you mentioned, we see, we've got, hundreds and hundreds of units coming on board downtown, both residential for purchase and for rent. But you're not seeing that affordability move appreciably. So I spend a lot of time looking at where's that rub and why is it not kind of moving the way you might expect it to move. So I think a lot of it is intentionality, right? It's looking at different places, looking at opportunities, adding that density, and then adding ways for people to access it, right? When I first started in real estate 8 or 9 years ago, the THDA Great Choice program was phenomenal, right? It gave folks a 5% grant, 3.5% down payment, 1.5% for closing costs. And if they lived in the home more than 5 years, year 6 through 10, that loan forgave at 20% a year, right? So it really gave people a leg up to get into home ownership. And then if they stayed there sometime and invested in their neighborhood and their community, they didn't have to pay that back and they built equity. And I watched a number of clients who are homeowners today, are building wealth and equity today that wouldn't have otherwise been able to take that first step. And that program has really lost a lot of leg on it because of, mostly funding reasons. But I'd love to see something like that kind of get a breath of fresh air, for example, to again, give folks that first step into the market. Because as I said before, when you're in it, it's easier to build that wealth and build that equity than if you're not.
Thanks for that. Jacob, I want to stick with you for a second for this next question. I wanted to mention, obviously, towards the end of 2024, we saw the passage of Nashville's Transit Improvement Plan. That's something that is deeply embedded with real estate and housing market and all of these topics that we're discussing. I wanted to ask, sort of more generally, how do we continue to move forward in 2025 and beyond when it comes to smart and strategic growth for the city? If you could unmute.
I keep telling you all the secrets, but
Thanks.
No, so I'm glad you brought that up. Was excited to see the transit plan pass at a 2-to-1 margin. I think it really shows the efforts again of the mayor and the mayor's office and everyone who worked on that plan to make it something that I think was really intentional, really thoughtful, and it does affect affordability, right? One of the challenges that I see is someone who lives maybe up in Bordeaux, for example, and wants to work, downtown right now cannot take a bus downtown, right? Where I live up in the Buena Vista, Germantown area, we can't take a bus from the north of downtown to the south of downtown, right? So there's a lot, and that's just a small microcosm. There's a lot of connectivity issues. So if folks want to, work in a certain area and live in a certain area, that they don't have that access. And then I think it also put additional demand pressure in the core. I've had so many clients come to me and say, I want to live 20 minutes outside of downtown, not because the neighborhood they move into feels urban, but because they want that $6 or $7 lift to go to that bar or that restaurant or that sporting event. A robust transit system might let those folks move a little bit farther out, pull some pressure off the core, and kind of balance pricing a little bit. So I think that's really cool. I think the other thing that we're looking at that's interesting is what's called transit-oriented development. So that's kind of taking these transit corridors and then basically building density around them to let folks, again, to live on that transit line, giving them that access, giving them that connectivity. So I think this is going to be a really big step in achieving affordability and not just creating new properties and new affordability options, but taking things that might not be affordable now or not make logistical sense now and make it make sense.
Liz, anything to add on that topic of smart growth?
Jacob hit the nail on the head about transit-oriented development and being strategic about how those areas you get access to so much without all of the traffic, which is what everybody complains about, or the not being able to find a parking spot. You can literally jump on a transit line and park your car, get where you want to go to all the cool things, and you're not paying a fortune for it. And you're also able to benefit from then going out further and you're not getting stuck like we have seen. I know transit-oriented development has been on the books for 20 years, so it's really exciting that this is kind of taking the next step. Even when I was in college, we were working on the Lebanon Music City Star Station, trying to figure out how we could start plugging people in, and you could just read a book on your way to work, and it would be so easy and relaxing. What a benefit to a resident. So hopefully that has a huge impact on not only real estate prices, but also just quality of life.
And Colin, if you could talk about that same question, how do we continue to strive for that smart and strategic growth as a city?
Keep supporting it. Use your vote. I'm so proud of Nashville that we did this, because I think that it is a community investment that is desperately needed, and I would encourage people to continue to support transit. I think that even if you think it doesn't help you, it does. Anybody who ever lived in a larger size city knew, if you lived 2 to 3 blocks away from a subway stop or anything like that, that it was the sweet spot. Everyone wanted to be close to transit, not too close. Maybe didn't want to be right on top of the station, but it also will help people's equity and their value, their home values, because being close to transit hubs and lines is something that is going to be desirable for everyone for years to come. this city's going to continue to grow and evolve. We can't stay a tiny, sleepy town forever. And instead of fighting growth, I think embracing it in a way that's wise and strategic and intentional is the way forward for everyone.
Thanks for that answer. Lastly, just to wrap up, I want to give each of you the chance to share something that you're optimistic about in 2025, something that you think that may be exciting for people to look ahead to. Colin, if you could start.
Sure. I think I'm really excited about buyer opportunity for 2025. As we said earlier, a lot of buyers have been sitting on the sidelines, really wanting to get into the market. And while sellers are not going to be very happy that we've had an increase in days on market and we have an increase in inventory, that's great for buyers. Sellers had it really, really great during the pandemic, and the past couple of years have been a little bit of a rude awakening. You now really should consider, when you get ready to market your property, you're going to have to do some things. You want to put your best foot forward. You might have to make some repairs. Buyers have more negotiating power now than they did 2 years ago. We are rebalancing to what most of us would consider a really almost ideal market where everyone can win. We have positive appreciation, but now we have more buyer choice. And it means sellers are going to have to market their property properly, and buyers now have more negotiating power than they have before. And that makes me happy because I think everyone can win. And to me, that's a great thing.
Liz, I'll ask you to go next. Something you're optimistic about in this new year.
So I love beautiful places. So I'm really optimistic about all of the cool new spaces and places that we have coming online, and even the plans for the future. Growing up here, this is a different city, right? I go around town and I am just in love with our city. All of the beautiful architecture that we're getting, the beautiful homes. I think there's just so much opportunity as this development happens for people to really create amazing spaces that enrich our residents' lives and create value, not only for homeowners and developers, but also just people living and visiting here. I think that a great space has so many amazing impacts on and ripple effects in your life, even if it's just being able to take a morning walk with your dog and see nice things. It makes a big difference. So I'm really excited about all of that. Thanks.
Jacob, close us out.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I'm going to piggyback off that. I think that's really exciting just to see, I feel like Nashville obviously grew pretty substantially in the last couple of years, almost took a breath in some ways, and is now about to hit that stride again. I mean, we're seeing Nashville Yards downtown come online. We're seeing the Newhoff District come online. We've got River North. We've got Oracle. We've got the East Bank. The list goes on and on and on. We've got, multiple billions of dollars worth of investment and growth and development happening in the city. So it's really exciting to see that, again, paired with a transit plan that's going to let us build sidewalks so people can walk to school and walk to buses and take transit and have adaptive signals and move more quickly through the city. So that's all really exciting to me. And then and hopefully stability, right? Obviously, as I say that, and it won't be, but for some time we weren't sure where these interest rates were going to land, and it feels like we've kind of landed in this 6 to 7% range, which obviously is higher than many would want it to be. But at least we kind of know what's going on, and then we can see how the buyers and sellers adjust to that. And then from a policy perspective, that helps us see, all right, this is kind of what the reality, this is what the playing field looks like. What do we need to do within this space to make it more accessible to people? So I think it's a really, really good time to be working on these things, and it's something at least I know, and I think everyone on this call really, really is passionate about.
Thank you all so much for your insights and your thoughtful answers on tonight's panel discussion. Thanks to our three panelists, thanks to the Greater Nashville Realtors Association. This has been the 2025 Real Estate Outlook in Middle Tennessee panel discussion brought to you by the Tennessean.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
David, you are muted.
I just gave the biggest secret, but much like Jacob. But thank you so much, Molly. You did a great job, and it looks great from YouTube, from Facebook, and also